Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Reconciliation is hard when you're unsure if it's truly about mending fences or just about getting a slice of the success pie. Today in the rLounge, there's always a catch. In-laws disowned my husband years ago. Now they claim a share in his property. We called the cops on them. Hey Reddit, buckle up because this is a wild ride. I never thought I'd be writing this, but here we are. My husband, let's call him Stuart, has had a tumultuous relationship with his parents for years. They disowned him nearly a decade ago, and now they've come back into our lives in the worst possible way. Brief background. Stuart grew up in a strict household. His parents, whom I'll refer to as Robert and Susan, were very traditional and had high expectations for their only child. From a young age, Stuart was expected to follow in his father's footsteps and do something big in his life. Actually, Stuart's parents migrated to the state as kids, and they both worked hard in their respective families to build a decent life for themselves. Their expectations from Stuart was to crack something really big and take a leap from their current economic status. However, Stuart had different plans. He wanted to be an artist, a path his parents didn't approve of at all. Worse for traditional parents, he wanted to pursue a career as a ballet instructor. Stuart picked up his knack for ballet from his aunt, who was a dance teacher. His parents used to work 2 jobs, hence they dropped him off at his aunt's dancing school when he was a kid. So, he grew up learning all sorts of dance forms. He even performed at various not-so-big shows. His parents were happy until it was just a hobby, and his prize money bought a fancy dinner meal for the family. Only when he expressed his desire to pursue it full-time, they went nuts. The tension between Stuart and his parents grew over the years. They saw his passion for ballet as a waste of time and money. They said they didn't spend bombs of money on his quality education and sent him to a private school to raise a femboy. It was derogatory, but they hardly cared. They wanted him to become a surgeon, or at least something in the medical field. Despite the disapproval, Stuart pursued his dreams. He moved out of his parents' house right after high school and worked multiple jobs to support himself while he attended the dance school. Things came to a head when Stuart was 22 and had just landed his first proper gig. He was ecstatic. He invited his parents to come, hoping to share his success with them. Instead of being proud, Robert and Susan were furious. They said he brought shame to the family by pursuing such a feminine career. They called him names and even cut off the aunt who babysit him. They blamed him for putting this weird idea into his head. They accused Stuart of abandoning the family and wasting his potential. They told him he was no longer welcome in their home and cut off all contact. Since then, he's been on his own, enjoying life, dancing, and teaching. I met him in one of the summer classes organized by my college. He was teaching ballet to college students of a different batch. Once our teacher was absent, Stuart filled in for her, and I couldn't stop admiring his flawless move. I changed my batch to join his class. This was the first time I'd ever made a move on men, and that was the last. The summer class was over, but we continued to see each other, not realizing how 3 years flew by. Stuart was open about his strained relationship with his parents from the beginning. It broke my heart to see how much their rejection hurt him, but I admired his resilience. He taught at 2 dance schools and gave private classes in the basement of his apartment on weekends. The owner of the building let him do it in exchange for the free lessons for his 10-year-old daughter. I completed college, got a job, and we moved in together in a studio apartment. Earlier, he was sharing a room with 2 other guys. We got married in a small ceremony with just a few close friends in my family. His parents were notably absent, but Stuart had come to terms with that. He had built a life for himself without their support, and he was proud of it. He made decent money, but we lived in the city heartland, which can make the richest feel poor. So by the end of the month, we had to rely on just bagels and peas. Over the years, we realized that our life was not getting better in this hustle, so we decided to move to a quieter town. It was challenging because of the lack of job opportunities for Stuart in the suburbs. That's when he decided to start his own dance institute. He always dreamt of his own school, but the infrastructure and setup costs deterred him. Now we had the space. We converted our garage space into a chic dance school. Earlier, Stuart was complaining that there was no ballet school in the town, and now he was happy that he'd had no competition. I won't say it was an overnight success because it was not. We had to struggle. We didn't have enough money for advertising, so we relied on word of mouth. I pitched to my coworkers and neighbors, and it slowly picked up. Gradually, we started living the life we dreamt of, which was very basic. Having our own house, a good car, and a truck filled with the month's grocery supplies. It was a dream to have food for a month in the fridge when we lived in the city. A year back, Stuart bought an abandoned factory and turned it into a huge dance school where all forms of dance were taught. He hired other teachers because he isn't an expert in other formats. I quit my job and managed this school. We recently bought a summer home in the countryside by the lakes. About a month ago, out of the blue, my in-laws showed up at our doorstep. Stuart was shocked and hesitant, but let them in. They wanted to mend fences and be a part of his life again. They apologized for their mistakes, and a lot of waterworks followed. It said they were growing old and fragile, and they could not die with the guilt of disowning their only son. Stuart walked out of them with tears. It's not easy for him to forget everything and move on. After he left, they held my hands and asked me to help them reconcile with their son. I didn't want to sound rude, so I said, I'll try. Though I have not spoken to Stuart on this topic again. I don't know if I have seen or read too many stories about greedy parents showing up after their child's success, or if it's just the natural instincts of protecting my husband that I don't feel good about their entry into our lives. I'm not a witch, but this is how it is. You guys can help me with the perspective. What do you guys think? Did they come back only for love and have no ulterior motive? I get it, OP. It's tough when people from your past come knocking with their waterworks routine, claiming they've had an epiphany. The fact that they are resurfacing now, after Stuart has built himself up and succeeded on his own, seems a bit too convenient. Seems like they're looking to share a bit of that honeypot. I mean, why else would they come back after all this time? Update 1. Hey people, thanks for the comments. Like most of you said, it was hard to guess their real intention, so I let Stuart decide without giving my opinion. He was hesitant initially, but his optimism kicked in and he decided to give them a chance. Meanwhile, Susan had been inviting us over for dinner, so when Stuart made up his mind, we accepted their dinner invite. It was awkward but civil. Stuart was holding up himself, not to make the situation uncomfortable for me. They visited us occasionally, and while the conversations were strained, Stuart appreciated the effort they were trying to put in. A couple of meetings went that way, and I realized that Stuart's pent-up anger for his parents was getting suppressed when it should be released. Their equation seemed to get better at a surface level, but Stuart still had that bitter feeling. I suggested therapy, but, Stuart denied having any problem, which was worth discussing with the therapist. So, I sought the next best option, confrontation. The next time Susan invited us, I dropped out of the plan and asked Stuart to go by himself. He refused to go alone, saying it would be awkward. I said that's what is the problem. Meeting your parents shouldn't be awkward. Get rid of your bitterness. Have a confrontation. He went, and they had an open but civil discussion. Things got better after that. However, it didn't take long for them to reveal their true intentions. One evening, after a few glasses of wine, Susan let it slip. She was talking about their financial trouble. Their business had gone under, and they were facing foreclosure on their home. We were shocked to hear that. We didn't see that coming. At least not so soon. I was definitely apprehensive about their intention, but I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, they never showed up during our bad days, but when our sun shined, they suddenly popped into our life. Can't be a coincidence, right? Stuart and I looked at each other, contemplating what to say. He went head straight and asked if they wanted money from him. Susan said in embarrassment, "Honey, I know what you're thinking, but trust me, it's not like that. Our intention is certainly not money. We love you. We want to have you back in our life." Stuart, naively or acting, God knows, said, "Phew. Thank God you didn't ask for money, because that would have implied that you reconciled only for dollars." Susan turned pale and faked a smile. A week later, Robert called Stuart for a private meeting. He laid out all open, unlike Susan. His business was barely surviving. He had put it up for sale along with all the resources, tools, website, infrastructure, etc. Their house was about to be snatched. He wanted to share in Stuart's property. Why? Because we had no children, and for some reason, they thought they would outlive us. Stuart was devastated. He had hoped they genuinely wanted to reconcile, but it was clear they were only interested in what he could give them. More precisely, they wanted our summer home and a monthly allowance of $5,000. What do they think they are? Stuart unleashed his anger and asked them why did they hide their motive when they could have demanded money in the first meeting. Susan screamed, "Would you have agreed to give us at the first instance? No, right?" Stuart sobbed. So it was all about the money, isn't it? Susan came to pacify him and said they genuinely loved him and money was just part of it. Stuart said he yelled at them. "Then why didn't you come for me when I was at rock bottom of my life, when I was struggling for a meal?" Robert intervened and howled, "Because we wanted you to suffer for your mistakes. You chose that femboy profession and abandoned my well-established business. I wanted you to rot until you crawl back to us and beg forgiveness." Stuart went, "Wow." And now you want a share in the property of which I made through that same femboy profession?" Robert shrieked. "Whatever, and don't you dare raise your voice in front of us. We raised you, sacrificing our own necessities. You owe us this much. We are not beggars. We are asking what is rightfully ours." Stuart stormed out of the house as he could no longer take it. Susan tried to stop him, but Stuart left. Susan followed him home and apologized for Robert's outbreak. She gave the excuse of Robert's hypertension, which drove him to say mean things. She was sorry about how things went that way, but she said they were genuinely in trouble and were about to be homeless and needed our help. Stuart and I are very anguished about their behavior and even intentions, but the fact is, they're his parents and he cannot let them live on the streets, can he? I'm at a fix. Stuart looks upon me for advice. I don't know what I should suggest to him. They showed up with their hands out, asking for a cut of the pie they didn't help him bake, and then had the gall to blame him for the ingredients? Given their track record, it might be best for Stuart to set some firm boundaries. They've already shown their true colors, and while it's tough to turn a blind eye to someone's plight, letting them use his success as a personal bailout plan is not the best play. Update 2. Here's next. After the blowout, Robert and Susan came back again after a week. Stuart told them he wasn't comfortable giving them our retirement house, especially after so many years of no contact. He offered to invest in his business so they could take care of themselves, but that wasn't enough for them. They demanded a share of our property, claiming that as his parents, they were entitled to it. And moreover, we have no children, so they think we don't need this much money for ourselves, and hence we should take care of them. Yeah, we don't have children. Doesn't mean we didn't want to have one. In our younger days, our finances were so crunched that we couldn't even think of bringing a child into our destitute life. Now when things got brighter, we've crossed that age to bear a child, but we're looking forward to adopting one. Their entitled behavior pisses us off, yet we were worried about their future. We definitely couldn't let them be homeless. But before jumping on the boat to help them, Stuart dug deep to understand their financial matters, and to our shock, he discovered that Robert had deliberately put up his house for sale. The mortgage was long over, so they lied about the foreclosure stuff. The bottom line is that they wanted our retirement house and leech upon our income while leading a lavish life by selling their house and business. Stuart called Robert and confronted his truth. He made up another lie that he was in knee-deep debt, hence he had to sell his house and business to clear it off. We all knew it was a lie because Stuart found out that they were planning a world trip with their money. They denied this to be true and said it was not our business to snoop into their lives. It was their money and they can do whatever they wanted, while Stuart should take care of them and pay his dues as a son. This was the last straw for Stuart. He made it clear that we won't give a penny to them and that we are cutting them off from our lives. Robert and Susan didn't take this well. They threatened legal action, claiming they had a right to his assets. Stuart was furious and heartbroken. He had finally let them back into his life only to be betrayed again. We knew we needed to protect ourselves, so we consulted a lawyer. Thankfully, our lawyer assured us that Stuart's parents had no legal claim to his property or assets. However, we still had to be cautious. Stuart made a tight will. We are in the process of adopting a child, and we need to ensure his or her social and financial security. I feel sorry for Stuart that he has to deal with such narcissistic parents. They have called this upon themselves. I mean, we could have taken care of them only if they didn't act entitled. Every child wants to fulfill their parents' dream. It's understandable that it was their house and their business. It's their wish to sell it off and go for a world trip. They didn't need to put up this facade of debt and extort money from us. They could have just acted like parents, loving and caring. Sadly, they never were. They always considered Stuart to be a lifeless asset. You get what you sow. Sometimes you really do get what you sow, and in their case, it looks like they've harvested a big old basket of too little too late. Update 3. It has taken a dramatic turn. After Stuart cut them off, Robert and Susan relentlessly pestered us. They began showing up at our dance school unannounced, disrupting the classes and even bad-mouthing Stuart. They went as far as contacting Stuart's students to try and tarnish his reputation. They spread a rumor that Stuart and I physically abused the preteen girls of our dance school. They tried to ruin our reputation and career. It was a nightmare. We had to involve our lawyer again. The stress was taking a toll on both of us. Stuart was losing sleep and I was constantly on the edge. We knew we had to take action to put an end to this harassment. That's when we decided to involve the police. Though our students and their parents know us personally and have not taken any action against us. However, it's a matter of time before someone gets manipulated and reports us based on their rumor. So we lodged a formal defamation complaint against them. We didn't want the cops to arrest them, but they should certainly be put in their place. They were sent a notice to stay away from us if they didn't want to spend their remaining days in jail. The next time Robert and Susan showed up at our dance school, we called the cops. We explained the situation and showed them the threatening messages we had received. The officers were sympathetic and soft to them because of their old age. My in-laws got into a scuffle with the cops. They told them to stay away from the family matters. One of the officers was literally laughing when Susan asked them to tell us to give in to their demands. Robert said he had spent so much money raising Stuart, and now he's entitled to reap the fruits of his investment. The cops calmly tried to handle the situation, but when my in-laws didn't back down, they strictly warned them to stay away from us and steadily took them out of the property. The cops also advised us to get a restraining order, which we promptly did. This seemed to deter them for a while, but they soon found other ways to harass us. Despite the restraining order and the police involvement, Robert and Susan didn't back down. They stood in front of our home and dance school with flyers and postcards writing fraud on them. They felt they were entitled to our property just because they gave birth to Stuart and raised him. When we called the cops, Robert argued that they didn't write anyone's name. They gave a tough time to the cops. I heard one of the cops telling them that if they had so much problem with us, they should go to court. I don't blame him. He said this to mitigate the chaos they were creating in the street. But their dumb selves filed a lawsuit claiming they were entitled to a portion of Stuart's earnings and property. Our lawyer assured us it was a baseless claim, but we still had to go through the motions of defending ourselves in court. The legal battle was exhausting and expensive. We had to gather evidence, attend court hearings, and deal with the constant stress of what felt like an endless fight. They claimed maintenance from us on the grounds that Stuart was their only son, and they invested in him, hence they should get their returns. Stuart was emotionally drained, and it was taking a toll on his creativity. He struggled to work on his dance class, and we had to scout for a couple of teachers to fill in for Stuart. It broke my heart to see him so defeated. However, we knew we had to see this through. We couldn't let them win. We had worked too hard to build our life together, and we weren't going to let anyone take that away from us. After months of back and forth, we finally had our day in court. Our lawyer presented a strong case, highlighting the years of estrangement and the lack of any legal basis for Robert and Susan's claims. They were constantly playing their old age and worst, their parents' card. At one point, Stuart even agreed to pay one-time money to them as a reward for raising him, but they stuck to their demands of house and monthly allowance. After a lot of to and fro, Robert agreed to the one-time money, but he demanded $1 million. I almost fainted hearing the number. Before Stuart could react, the judge dismissed it. Not only the claim, but also the whole case. The judge saw through their manipulations and ruled in our favor. It was a huge relief, but we still had to fight the emotional battle. Robert and Susan were furious. They stormed out of the courtroom, but not before making one last threat. They swore they would find another way to make Stuart pay. It was chilling, but we hoped this was the end of it. We also took steps to protect ourselves further. We installed security cameras around our home and school. We wanted to ensure we were prepared for whatever Robert and Susan might try next. The cops have asked us to deploy security in our summer home, or maybe rent it to safeguard it from my in-laws trespassing. We certainly don't want another court case or another encounter with them or the cops. We don't have this one thing to deal with in our life. It's been more than 2 weeks since all the drama wrapped up. I hope they back down after this. A few days back, I got to know they wanted to purchase back their house from the new owner at the same price they have sold, but the new owner had surged the price up 1.3 times, and they are now busy dealing with him. Poor guy. But good for us that they're occupied with something else. That's all for now. I think I've pretty much covered everything. If there's anything left, I'll edit it before the mod publishes it. Else, I'll write another update. Thanks for reading this. Oh boy. Robert's attempted $1 million payoff had me in stitches. Yeah, okay. In their dreams. In the end, you and Stuart are left with a heartwarming story of survival against the odds, and an excellent cautionary tale for anyone thinking their estranged family might suddenly become sane and reasonable. It's unfortunate you have to go so far as a security system and possibly even renting out your place. Some people just don't know when to stop. Here's hoping they're too busy haggling over real estate to concoct any more schemes. Best wishes, OP. What do you make of this? And thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you soon. And please put your chair back where you found it.